Obinna and his wife Ada lived in a small African town where people knew each other well. They were respected because Obinna was a successful trader, and Ada was always busy with her business. They had one son, Kelechi, a bright boy with big eyes full of dreams. But even though Obinna and Ada loved their son, they were always busy. They gave him clothes, toys, and money whenever he asked, but they did not give him something more important, their time. Every morning, Obinna left home early for the market. He carried his bags, counted his money, and thought only about trade. Ada also woke up early, dressed in fine clothes, and went to meet her friends or attend to her own business. Kelechi sat at the table with his food, often eating alone. He looked at the door, hoping his parents would sit with him. But the chairs stayed empty. When Kelechi went to school, he saw other children walking with their mothers or fathers. They laughed, talked, and sometimes held hands. Kelechi walked alone. He did well in class, but his heart was heavy. At the end of the school day, he looked around and saw parents waiting for their children, smiling and asking how their day had gone. Kelechi returned home by himself. The big house he lived in was full of furniture and things, but it felt empty to him. In the evenings, Ada often went out to meet her friends. They sat together, talking about clothes, jewelry, and parties. Obinna stayed busy counting his profit from the day. They both believed they were doing their best for their son because they gave him everything he needed. He has food, clothes, and a fine home. What more could a child want? Ada would say proudly. But Kelechi wanted something different. He wanted their smiles, their hugs, and their words of love. Sometimes Kelechi tried to speak. When Ada was leaving the house, he would say, "Mama, can you stay with me?" But Ada would pat his head quickly and say, "Next time, my child, I have work to do." When Obinna came home late, Kelechi would run to him and say, "Papa, will you play with me?" Obinna would shake his head and reply, "I am tired, Kelechi. Tomorrow, we will play." But tomorrow never came. At night, Kelechi sat by the window. He watched the moon and stars. He whispered to himself, "Why don't Mama and Papa sit with me? Why are they always so busy?" But he never said this to them. He feared they would not understand. He smiled when they gave him money and gifts, but inside his heart was lonely. The neighbors sometimes noticed. One old woman named Mama Ifema often saw Kelechi sitting alone outside the house. She shook her head and said, "A child does not grow only with food and clothes. A child grows with love." But she did not say this to Obinna and Ada because they were proud and never listened to advice. One day, Kelechi saw a boy his age playing football with his father in the field. They laughed loudly, rolling on the grass. Kelechi watched them, his eyes wide, his heart wishing. He wanted to join, but he stood quietly in the corner. He thought, if only Papa would play with me like that. He carried this wish in his heart every day. Although he was young, Kelechi understood something his parents did not. He knew that gifts and money could not fill the emptiness he felt inside. He wanted stories at night, gentle words in the morning, and the warmth of family around him. He wanted to feel that he mattered more than business and friends. Every day was the same. Obinna and Ada worked, laughed with others, and came home late. Kelechi stayed silent. He never showed anger, but his eyes told the story of a boy longing for love. He was their only son, yet he felt invisible. And though his parents believed they were raising him well, the truth was different. Without their time, without their love, a space had grown in Kelechi's heart, an empty space he could not fill with toys or money. He kept his feelings hidden, but the loneliness stayed with him. This was how life went on in their house, day after day. The parents thought they were doing everything right, but they could not see the pain in their child's heart. And Kelechi, though small, carried a burden too heavy for his young age. It was a silent burden, a loneliness that grew with each passing day. Would Obinna and Ada ever see what was happening? Would they ever realize that their son needed more than gifts and money? At that time, nobody knew. All that was clear was that a boy was longing for love, and two parents were too busy to notice. Kelechi's loneliness grew day by day. He wanted someone to notice him, someone to sit beside him, someone to call his name with love. Since his parents were always busy and the house felt cold, he began to look outside for company. At first, he just wandered around the streets after school, watching other children play. He sat quietly at the edge of the football field, hoping someone would ask him to join. Sometimes children did, but he always felt empty when he returned home alone. It was during these times that Kelechi met a group of boys in the street. They were older than him, and they were loud, careless, and bold. They laughed in ways that made him feel included, and for the first time, he thought he had found friends. These boys were not like the children in his class. They often skipped school, and they did not respect their parents. They walked the streets in groups, chasing fun and trouble. At first, Kelechi only walked with them. They told him stories, laughed at his jokes, and gave him the attention he longed for. When he was with them, he felt seen. Nobody called him lonely or ignored him. But slowly, their ways began to influence him. One afternoon, they encouraged him not to go to school. "School is boring," one of them said. "Come with us, Kelechi. We will show you real fun." Kelechi hesitated, but he followed them. That day they wandered around the town. They took fruits from the stalls without paying, laughing as they ran away from the angry traders. Kelechi felt uneasy, but he laughed with them because he wanted to belong. Deep inside, his heart knew it was wrong, but the warmth of their friendship blinded him. He thought, "At least someone wants me here." Soon skipping school became a habit. He started to spend more time with these boys than with his books. When teachers asked where he was, he always had excuses. Sometimes he even lied to Ada and Obinna, saying he was at school when he was with his new friends in the streets. The boys also introduced him to bad habits. They drank palm wine in secret, even though they were too young. They smoked little sticks and laughed loudly, pretending to be men. Kelechi coughed the first time, but he wanted to impress them, so he tried again. He thought if he said no, they might push him away, and then he would be alone once more. The neighbors saw what was happening. They noticed Kelechi walking with the boys and doing things no good child should do. They tried to warn Obinna and Ada. One old man said, "Your son is always with those street boys. They are leading him down a dangerous path." But Obinna only laughed proudly. "My son has everything he needs. He is just enjoying himself. He will not fail." Ada also brushed the warnings aside. She said, "Our Kelechi is not like other children. He is fine." They did not see the truth. They were too busy with their lives to notice the changes in him. His clothes became dirty, his eyes lost their shine, and his books gathered dust. Still, they believed he was fine. They gave him money whenever he asked, never questioning what he did with it. He used the money to follow the other boys, buying things he should not, joining them in their reckless games. Sometimes at night, when he was alone, Kelechi felt a sting of guilt. He thought about his teachers and his empty books. He thought about how proud his parents had once been of him. But the guilt never lasted long, because the next day his friends called him, and he forgot everything again. He wanted their laughter, their approval, their company. He wanted to feel that he belonged somewhere, even if it was the wrong place. One afternoon, the boys convinced Kelechi to steal from a trader in the market. They planned it like a game, laughing as they whispered. Kelechi's hands shook, but they pushed him forward. He took something small, and they all ran away, shouting with joy. For the first time, Kelechi's heart pounded with both fear and excitement. The trader shouted after them, but they were gone. When they stopped running, the boys clapped his back and said, "Now you are one of us." Kelechi smiled, but inside he felt heavy. The neighbors saw it all. They shook their heads sadly. One woman said, "That boy is going astray. If his parents do not open their eyes, he will be lost." But still, Obinna and Ada did not believe them. They continued with their busy lives, trusting that Kelechi was safe because they had given him everything money could buy. Days turned into weeks, and Kelechi sank deeper into the wrong company. His school performance dropped. His teachers sent notes home, but he hid them. His parents never asked questions. He felt both free and trapped. Free because nobody stopped him, and trapped because he knew he was becoming someone he was not meant to be. He missed the love he had always wanted from his parents, but he no longer asked for it. Instead, he found himself clinging to the attention of the street boys. He thought, maybe this is where I belong now. And so, the boy who once dreamed under the stars, wishing for love from his parents, slowly became a shadow of himself. He was now walking on a path full of danger, and though many people saw it, the two who should have cared most remained blind. The warnings of the neighbors were not enough. Obinna and Ada's pride made them deaf. They thought they were raising a son who could not fail, but they did not see that their neglect was pushing him closer to failure every day. Kelechi's journey with the wrong company had only begun, and the price of his choices was waiting ahead. The sun was hot that afternoon when Kelechi and his friends walked into the market. The streets were busy with traders calling out, children running around, and women carrying baskets of food on their heads. The group of boys laughed loudly, pushing each other as if the whole world belonged to them. Kelechi followed them, trying to keep his nerves calm. His heart was not at peace, but he pretended to be strong. That day, one of the older boys pointed at a small shop. Kelechi, it's your turn today, he said. Go inside and take something. Don't be afraid. We are here. Kelechi's throat went dry. He wanted to say no, but the eyes of the boys were on him. They had made him feel like a brother, and he feared if he refused, they would laugh at him and call him weak. He wanted to prove he was brave. He wanted to belong. So, he nodded. He walked slowly into the shop. The shopkeeper, a kind old man named Baba Musa, looked up. He smiled at Kelechi and said, "Welcome, my boy. What do you want today?" Kelechi's hands shook. He pretended to look at the goods, but his mind was racing. He saw sweets and small items on the counter. His friends were watching from outside, nodding for him to act. Kelechi's hand reached out and grabbed something quickly. He hid it under his shirt and turned to leave. But Baba Musa had sharp eyes. He saw the move. "Stop there, boy," he shouted. His voice echoed through the shop. Kelechi froze. His heart jumped into his throat. The other boys ran away, leaving him alone. Baba Musa walked up to him, pulled the item from under his shirt, and held him by the arm. "You think you can steal from me? Do you not know stealing destroys a man's soul?" The noise drew a crowd. People gathered around, whispering, shaking their heads. "Is that not Obina's son?" someone asked. "How could a boy from such a family do this?" Before Kelechi could speak, the police arrived. Baba Musa handed him over, saying, "Teach him a lesson. If children are not corrected, they will grow into men who destroy the land." The police took Kelechi by the arm. His eyes filled with tears, but he tried to hold them back. They walked him through the streets, and everyone stared. Some pointed, others whispered. Children who once played with him looked shocked. His shame was like a heavy stone pressing on his chest. When they reached his house, the police knocked on the gate. Obina opened the door. His face turned pale when he saw his only son standing there with the police. "What is this?" he asked, his voice shaking. One officer spoke firmly. "Your son was caught stealing in the market. He must face discipline. But because of Baba Musa's mercy, he asked us to bring him home instead of the station." Obina's face grew red with anger. He looked at Kelechi with eyes full of disappointment. "You? My son? How dare you shame me like this?" he shouted. His voice was so loud that even the neighbors heard. Ada rushed out when she heard the noise. She saw her son standing with the police, his head bowed in shame, and tears flowed from her eyes. "Not my Kelechi," she whispered, covering her mouth. But it was true. The whole town now knew. Their boy, the one they thought could never fail, had failed them in the worst way. Obina turned to the police. "Leave him. I will deal with this myself." The officers nodded and left, but not before giving a warning: if he continues like this, next time he will not be spared. As soon as they left, Obina dragged Kelechi inside. "You ungrateful child," he shouted. "Have I not given you everything? Money, clothes, food? And this is how you repay me? By disgracing me before the town?" Ada cried, her heart breaking. She touched her son's shoulder, but he pulled away, ashamed to look at her. She whispered, "Why, Kelechi? Why would you do this?" Her voice was full of pain, not anger. Kelechi wanted to speak, to say he had been lonely, that he wanted love and time more than money. But the words stuck in his throat. His father's anger burned like fire, and his mother's tears cut him deeper than a knife. Outside, the neighbors gathered, whispering again. "Did you hear? Obina's son was caught stealing. This is what happens when parents give money but no care." The word spread like wildfire, and soon the whole town knew. That night, the house was silent. Obina sat with his head in his hands. Ada lay in bed, weeping softly. Kelechi sat alone in the corner, his mind full of regret. He remembered the laughter of the street boys who had run away, leaving him to face the punishment alone. He realized then that they were never true friends. They only used him. But the damage was done. His name was stained, his family's pride broken, and his parents' hearts shattered. He had thought stealing would make him feel strong, but it only made him feel smaller than ever. In that moment, Kelechi wished he could go back, to change his choices, to shout for his parents' attention before it was too late. But now he stood at the bottom of the pit, and climbing out would not be easy. The boy who once only wanted love had now become the center of shame in the town. And his parents, who thought money was enough, finally saw the true cost of neglect. Their hearts were broken, and the whole town knew it. The shame of what happened in the market did not remain hidden. By the next morning, almost every corner of the village was buzzing with talk about Obina's son. Men at the palm wine stall shook their heads sadly. Women at the river whispered while washing clothes. Even the children used Kelechi's name when warning each other, "Do not steal, or you will end up like him." Obinna walked through the streets with heavy steps. Everywhere he turned, people greeted him politely, but he could feel their eyes. He knew what they were thinking. Ada stayed mostly inside, unable to bear the whispers. Kelechi, ashamed and afraid, avoided everyone. One evening, the village elders sent word that Obinna and Ada should appear before them. When the message came, Obinna frowned. "Why should we go? This is a family matter." But Ada placed her hand on his arm and said softly, "We must. The shame is no longer only ours. It has become the village's shame too." So the couple went to the meeting. The elders sat in a circle under the big iroko tree, their faces calm but firm. The oldest among them, Elder Namdi, cleared his throat. His voice was strong though his hair was white. "Obinna, Ada," he began, "we have heard and seen what has happened to your son. It pains us deeply, because every child in this village is a child of us all. When one child goes astray, the whole community feels the wound." Obinna lowered his eyes. Ada held her wrapper tightly, fighting her tears. Another elder, Memai Gioma, spoke gently. "A child without guidance is like a tree without water. No matter how rich the soil is, no matter how bright the sun, the tree will wither if it has no water. Your son has not been watered with love and care." Her words fell like stones on their hearts. Elder Namdi continued, "You have given your son money, clothes, and food. But you have not given him your time. You have not listened to his heart. You have not shown him the path with patience and wisdom. And so, he looked for love in the wrong places, and those places led him to shame." Obinna's fists tightened. For a moment, his pride rose, wanting to defend himself. But when he looked around, he saw the truth in every elder's face. These were men and women who had raised their children with care. Their words were not meant to wound him, but to teach him. Ada finally spoke in a trembling voice, "We thought we were doing the right thing. We worked hard to give him all he asked for. We believed money and gifts would be enough." A younger elder, Chaik, shook his head. "Children do not grow strong on gifts alone. They grow strong on love, on correction, on guidance. A child's heart is like soft clay. If you do not shape it with your hands, the world will shape it with rough stones." The couple sat in silence. The truth was painful, but they could not deny it. Then Memai Gioma leaned forward. "Ada, Obinna, it is not too late. Your son has stumbled, but he can rise again. You must give him what you denied him, your presence. Sit with him. Teach him. Walk with him. Let him feel that his parents are not just givers of money, but givers of love." The words touched Ada so deeply that tears ran down her face. Obinna took a deep breath and nodded slowly. "We have failed him," he admitted at last. "We thought wealth would protect him. We forgot that a child's heart needs more than riches. We forgot that he needed us." The elders nodded. Elder Namdi raised his hand and said, "Remember this, a family is like a farm. If you neglect it, weeds will grow. If you tend it with care, fruits will come. Go now, and tend your family before it is too late." When Obinna and Ada left the meeting, the sky was full of stars. The night was calm, but their hearts were heavy with both shame and hope. They walked side by side without speaking for a while. Finally, Ada whispered, "We must change. We must save Kelechi." Obinna nodded, his voice low but firm. "Yes. We will give him more than money. We will give him ourselves." That night, they sat with their son. At first, Kelechi avoided their eyes. He expected more shouting, more tears. But instead, Obinna spoke gently, "My son, we have wronged you. We left you to walk alone when you needed us most. From today, that will change." Ada took Kelechi's hand. "You are not alone, my child. We will walk with you. But you must also choose a better path. The way of stealing and bad friends only leads to sorrow." For the first time in many months, Kelechi felt his parents' words reach his heart. He looked up at them, and his eyes shone with both regret and hope. He whispered, "I only wanted you to see me. I only wanted your love." Ada pulled him into her arms, weeping. Obinna placed his hand on his son's back. "We see you now, my son. And we will not stop seeing you." It was not an easy promise. Healing would take time. Trust would take effort. But that night was the beginning of a new chapter. The elders' words echoed in their minds, "A child without guidance is like a tree without water." And they knew, from that moment, they would water their son's heart with love every day. The mistake was clear, but the lesson was even clearer. The days after the meeting with the elders were not easy for Obinna, Ada, or Kelechi. But slowly, small changes began to grow in their home, like new seeds sprouting in the soil after the rain. For the first time in many years, Obinna sat with his son at the table, not only to eat but to talk. He asked him about his schoolwork, about his friends, about what he dreamed to become in the future. Kelechi was surprised at first, not knowing how to answer. But as the days passed, he began to open up. Ada also changed her ways. Instead of spending her evenings with neighbors or busying herself only with chores, she started sitting with Kelechi. She told him stories of her own childhood, of the struggles she faced and how her parents guided her with love and correction. She even taught him how to cook simple meals, laughing with him when he made mistakes. For the first time in a long while, Kelechi felt like he belonged in his own home. At first, the pull of the street boys was still strong. They called out to him when they saw him walking home from school. "Kelechi, come with us. Let's have fun." His heart wavered, but when he remembered the shame in his mother's tears and the disappointment in his father's eyes, he shook his head. "No, not today," he said softly, and he walked away. The boys mocked him, but deep inside, he felt proud of himself. Obinna and Ada did not let him fight alone. They walked with him to the market, showing him how to buy things honestly. They took him to the farm, where Obinna taught him how to plant cassava and yam. "Life is like this," Obinna explained as they bent over the soil together. "If you plant good seeds and care for them, they will bring good harvest. But if you neglect the land, weeds will grow. A child is the same." Kelechi listened carefully, and for the first time, he understood his father's heart. School also became a place of change. At first, Kelechi was far behind. His books were empty, his teachers disappointed. But his parents encouraged him every night. Ada sat beside him, helping him read. Obinna tested him on sums and clapped for him when he answered correctly. Slowly, Kelechi began to enjoy learning again. His grades improved little by little. His teachers noticed and praised him. "You are trying," they said. "Keep going." Those words gave him strength. The town, too, was watching. People who once shook their heads at him now began to nod in approval. "See Obinna's son," they said. "He is changing. The boy is different now." Some even told their own children, "Look at Kelechi. If he can turn away from bad friends, so can you." Kelechi's heart also changed toward his parents. Before, he saw them as strangers who only gave him money. Now, he saw them as guides who cared for his soul. He began to love spending time with them. He told them about his dreams, to finish school, to become a teacher, to help other children like him. Obinna smiled proudly and said, "You will do it, my son. With hard work and the right path, you will do it." Ada often prayed quietly, thanking God for the change in their family. She held Kelechi close and said, "You are my joy, my son. Never forget, true love is greater than gold." Those words stayed in Kelechi's heart like a song. As weeks turned into months, the bond in the family grew stronger. They ate together, worked together, and prayed together. Laughter filled the home where once there had been silence. Kelechi's eyes shone again, no longer clouded with shame. He walked through the village with his head held high, and people smiled when they saw him. The lesson was clear to everyone. Parents in the village began to look at their own children differently. They remembered the words of the elders, "A child without guidance is like a tree without water." They realized parenting was not just about buying clothes or paying school fees, but about love, patience, and time. Kelechi's story became a reminder for the whole community. It taught them that no child is lost if parents are willing to change, and no family is broken if love returns to its place. And so, the boy who once brought shame became a sign of hope. The parents who once neglected became examples of care. The family who once walked apart now walked together, hand in hand. In the end, Obinna and Ada learned that wealth could buy many things, but it could never replace a parent's love. And Kelechi learned that even mistakes could become lessons if the heart is willing to change. Everyone in the town carried the message with them. Parenting is not about money, but about love and time. The family was whole again, and their story lived on in the hearts of many.